This video was done in collaboration with Down the Rabbit Hole, or DTR for short. Be sure to check out their channel after we explore 10 strange things pilots have seen in flight.
What's that in the sky? It's a plane. It's a UFO. It's OMG, it's an actual UFO. At least that is what a few pilots said they've seen while flying. Pilots have been on record describing out-of-this-world encounters, from giant flying cigars to entering a sci-fi-like wormhole. Number 10. Gone missing over the changing water. Everyone in the world has heard about the sinister Bermuda Triangle. So many planes and boats have gone missing over the years, and so many weird accidents have happened that the area has become known as the Devil's Playground. During a navigation flight in 1945, a squadron of 5 U.S. Navy torpedo bombers up and vanished when they got near it. They have become known as the infamous Flight 19 and were only recently fished out of the ocean. The planes have basically fallen apart. Their last recorded transmission came from the lead pilot, who said, "We are entering white water. Nothing seems right. We don't know where we are. The water is green. No, white." After these confusing words, the planes vanished without a trace until their retrieval. 9. This is how the UFOs became such a famous topic. Ever heard of Kenneth Arnold? He was a successful businessman and USA aviator, and his encounter with UFOs is what made the idea boom in popularity and importance. He was flying near Mount Rainier in Washington state back in 1947 when he spotted a fairly large group of unknown objects in the sky, a total of 9. He described them as being silvery and shiny and said they seemed to be shaped like a pie plate, and was startled when he couldn't find any sort of tail on them, as you would expect to see on a man-made aircraft. Arnold claimed the UFOs were emitting a series of flashes, like when a mirror reflects sunlight in your eyes, and were traveling at a stunning speed. He actually decided to clock them as they flew by. He said, "I took out my watch and checked off 1 minute and 42 seconds from the time they passed Mount Rainier until they reached the peak of Mount Adams. All told, the objects remained in view slightly less than 2 minutes from the time I first noticed them." Since Arnold was viewed by society as a model witness, his recounting of the event gave a great amount of credibility to UFO stories at the time, as well as in years to come. 8. Who were the original Foo Fighters? Fans of rock music would probably bust out all the names of the band's lineup here, but that's not what we're talking about. The term Foo Fighters actually refers to a UFO sighting that happened in World War II. They're probably a familiar story to the fans of the band. Foo Fighter was the nickname that fighter pilots on the Allied side gave to the UFOs they spotted while in the air. The number of these sightings during the war is actually pretty huge. A snippet from one pilot's report describes the UFO he saw as a strange globe glowing with greenish light, about half the size of the full moon as it appears to us. Another witnessed what he said were 2 fog lights flying at high rates of speed that could change direction rapidly. Some people think that these were simply advanced German planes, but nobody has any real explanation. 7. Flying hot coal instead of traditional saucer plates. This weird sight is probably the most publicized, most famous UFO encounter ever. In 1952, 2 commercial pilots were flying over Virginia. Their names were William B. Nash and William H. Fortenberry, and they saw some pretty unusual flying objects. Not shiny, silvery, or foggy, but bright red and orange. They describe a red brilliance appearing in the air east of Newport News, and it didn't gradually fade in from the horizon. It seemed to have just popped up straight out of nowhere. It didn't have just one source either. There was a straight line of 6 round objects making a beeline towards the pilots at breakneck speed at a much lower altitude. They described the object as perhaps 20 times more brilliant than the city lights to the right, evidently circular, not phosphorescent or fuzzy in the least. The red-orange color, which made the 2 pilots compare these UFOs to hot coal, was uniformly spread over their top. Who knows? Maybe the bottom side was actually the same sort of silvery color most ground observers see. Number 6. Not your average amateur cameraman. Here's a bit of an exception to your standard UFO stories. While most of the sightings we know about were reported by pilots under various levels of pressure or some bewildered civilians from down on the ground, this one came from a little more credible source. On August 17, 2016, an ABC-15 Arizona News helicopter was flying over San Bernardino in California and caught a weird thing on footage. Traveling right below them at an altitude shockingly close to ground level was a bright white object moving at a tremendous speed. So far, nobody in the area has reported seeing aliens or being abducted, but debates are still going hot over what exactly it might have been. 5. Flying cigars are the new way to travel. Forget flying pie plates or even hot coals. Apparently, there are flying cigars in our universe. Taking the time machine a decade back and landing into 2007, a commercial pilot named Ray Boyer observed a couple of downright weird objects flying over Alderney. It wasn't just a brief light trick either. His UFO encounter lasted for a full 15 minutes. The first object became visible at a distance of 55 miles, and when they got closer, Boyer and his passengers spotted a second, identical one right behind it. He described them as being a flattened disc shape, bright yellow with a dark area to their right, up to a mile across and similar to cigars. There was light emanating from the inside. However, when they closed in about 12 miles away, these objects became uncomfortably large, and Boyer says he was glad that he had to descend from the sky and land his plane. The pilots of another plane, which was 25 miles further south from Boyer's at the time, also saw the strange yellow cigar-like UFOs and were equally unnerved and confused by them. 4. Traveling through a wormhole. Entering a time warp and blasting through the sky has long since stopped being the stuff of sci-fi movies. Introducing Bruce Gernon Jr., a.k.a. the time-traveling pilot. His experience dates all the way back to 1970, December 4th to be more precise. He was flying near Bimini, taking this list back to the Bermuda Triangle, when he blundered straight into a wormhole. He contacted Miami radio at 3:30 p.m. to tell them that something had gone wrong and that he wasn't sure of his position anymore. The way he describes it, all of his electronic navigational instruments went haywire, his compass was spinning wildly, and basically everything that was supposed to help him find his way completely malfunctioned. And that's when he became aware of the tunnel through time itself. He described it as a horizontal tunnel that was 10,000 feet high, about 10 miles long, and 100 miles east of Miami. Something attached itself to the airplane, which Gernon calls an electronic fog. He had traveled a distance of 100 miles in a mere 3 minutes and 20 seconds. Number 3. The not-so-friendly visitors to an airport. In 1995, a pretty scary thing happened at Bariloche Airport. There were power outages throughout the city and at the airport, disrupting air traffic for about 15 minutes. During that time, a UFO came terrifyingly low and played cat and mouse with an Aerolíneas Argentinas airplane. Its pilot, Jorge Polanco, said a white light came at his plane just as he was about to land. It stopped at 100 meters away and followed the plane's every move. He described it as a saucer the size of an airliner with 2 green lights at the ends and an orange gleam in the center which ignited intermittently. He made an evasive maneuver and went up to 4,500 meters, but the UFO still followed at a supernatural speed before blasting off out of sight. 2. He saw a UFO and was never seen again. The chilling story of Frederick Valentik is still a subject of fierce and heated debate among UFO enthusiasts on the one side and skeptics on the other. On the night of October 21, 1978, the pilot contacted air traffic control in Melbourne via radio and reported being followed by an aircraft which he described as having a green light, sort of metallic-like. It's all shiny on the outside. Valentik was flying over the Bass Strait on his way to Kings Island when this weird thing started toying with his airplane, following him around and hovering right overhead. What makes it weird is that the Melbourne Air Traffic Control couldn't pick up even the slightest trace of it on their radar, even though the pilot gave them clear enough descriptions of its altitude, position, speed, and movement patterns. Besides, they were pretty close, right? Well, a bit too close. Frederick Valentik's final radio transmission ended with a distraught comment about the UFO hovering right on top of him, and then 17 seconds of silence, followed by a scraping metallic sound, after which the poor pilot was gone for good. Number 1. A Russian pilot shared the sky with 2 UFOs. In July 2016, in the sky above the Kursk area in Russia, a military pilot reported having a close encounter with 2 UFOs, and the whole event was filmed by the onboard camera. This picture was taken from that video. If you look carefully, you can see the other UFO a bit further back, right where the tip of the airplane's wing is. This encounter happened at the amazing altitude of 60,000 feet, and it is by no means the only one. There have actually been more than 40 cases of Russian pilots encountering UFOs over the years, and that's not counting all the reports filed in by the soldiers who saw them from ground bases all around the country. Of course, many were explained by technical stuff like missile launches, target practice, and whatnot, but many more remained a mystery.
A big thanks to Down the Rabbit Hole. You can check out more from them right over here. That dude sure can narrate.
For better.